Oyo State delays reopening of religious centers and schools. Now we're going to be going into the merits and the problems with this sort of a decision. So we're going to be making sure everything is clear so everybody can understand what is going on according to the decision of the governor of Oyo State. So now, Governor Seyi Makinde, that's the governor of Oyo State, wants to wait for experts to give him the decision or to give him that go-ahead before he's going to open up the state, especially the religious centers and the schools. Always remember that the federal government has already lifted the lockdown on religious centers across the nation right now. But again, the governors still have some leeway in deciding when and how they are going to be doing the release of the lockdown. So there's still a little bit of federalism in this system. So that's one thing that we all have to understand. So that's the reason why Lagos State can still hold back on the lifting of lockdown measures on religious centers and also Oyo State. So that's how those things work. So now, according to him, so the reason why he's doing that is because he wants to wait for experts. And of course, the experts he's talking about are the medical experts. So those people who really know what's going on with the virus, that's the coronavirus. Those people who are dealing with the virus, those people in the public health sector. So those are the people that he's waiting for to get advice from whether or not it is safe enough for them to open the systems like the religious centers and the schools especially. Now, it actually makes sense in a certain way. It actually does make sense in a certain way because it's not even only him. Even outside the country, we have people and governors and presidents who really do that. For example, you remember the name Anthony Fauci. That's the major person, the major epidemiologist that Trump listens to in the United States in making decisions. So that actually makes sense. It's like an international way of treating this sort of an issue. So it makes sense a lot if you look at it from that perspective. And of course, it also depends on what the lockdown is supposed to mean. So it depends on what you want to achieve from the lockdown. Because one thing that's going to happen that everybody really does agree on, unless those people who are not really listening to the news or actually following what is going on with this virus, is that this thing is going to increase when you lift the lockdown. So that's just it. Now, that doesn't mean the end of the world when you lift the lockdown, but the fact remains that it is going to increase. So the spread of the virus is definitely going to increase after you lift the ban on churches and mosques and schools. Now, I'm not saying that is good enough rationale for you to lock them down indefinitely, because of course you're opening markets, so there's always going to be a chance of spreading the virus in the markets also. But it is considered that markets are more important because the very basic need of human being is to survive. So I understand that. But again, it's all very relative because some people consider the religious centers to be as important as the market. In some cases, maybe even more important than the market. So it all depends, and it's a very, very subjective way of deciding what sort of services are important, what sort of services are essential services. So now that is very, very clear. But again, it's one thing that we can all understand and we can all agree to, that the more you open institutions up, the more the number of services and institutions you open up, the more the thing will have the chance to spread. So that is completely understandable. But then again, the aim of the lockdown at the very beginning was that to slow the spread. It was never said that to stop the spread. Now, I'm not trying to say some heresy here. That is exactly what the federal government and the state government decided to do. They did not intend to stop the spread. The reason why they decided to slow the spread was that they did not want a situation where the spread would be so much that the number of people that would be required to be admitted, because of course not every single person that gets the virus will be admitted, because so many people who have the virus are going to be asymptomatic, like they will not have any symptoms. So you won't even know that you already had the virus. You won't even have so much as a sniffle. You won't even be sneezing. Nothing at all for about 80% of people who get the virus. So it is not as deadly as people seem to characterize the thing to be. Now, I'm not saying it is not dangerous, but it's not as deadly as they characterize the thing to be. So what they were trying to do is that, okay, we want to slow the spread so that this thing is not going to be getting to those people who are very, very vulnerable. Again, the old, and then those people with compromised immune system, those people with pre-existing conditions like maybe kidney disease, like diabetes and things like that. Those are the people that are most likely to be hurt and that will require admission in hospitals from this thing. So if the thing spreads a lot, it means you are going to have a higher number of those people getting the virus and requiring admission. We all know that our healthcare system in Nigeria is not like the best in the world. It's not like even part of the advisable ones that you want to advise your family members to go if you had the choice of choosing. And that's why most of our politicians and the rich people in Nigeria hardly ever use the healthcare system in Nigeria. Even Buhari, there is a health center in the Aso Rock, at the federal government's residence, yet he doesn't use that. He's always flying out, getting out to UK. So that we all understand that our healthcare system is problematic. So everybody knows that. So now that's the reason why we are trying to slow the spread so that we don't completely disrupt the entire healthcare system that is already feeble before. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. But again, they're already trying to shift the goalpost now from spreading. That is from slowing the spread to now stopping the spread. That's what it starts to sound like now. Like they're trying to stop the spread. That's what's actually happening. So according to Oyo State now, from what I'm hearing from this, it seems they want to wait till the medical experts are going to give a go-ahead. But if you are going to wait for a medical expert to give a go-ahead, you have to know that experts simply focus on a single thing where they know a lot of things. That experts know a particular thing to almost every aspect of that particular thing. So they know so much about a single thing, that's their own field, and know very little about other things. So now the medical experts are going to focus on reducing the reducing the amount of casualties you are going to have from this thing. That's the only thing they're going to be concerned about, which means if it is possible for the medical experts, they will only advise you to open up when it gets to a stage where possibly there's nobody getting the virus anymore, which is almost unrealistic because the economy is going to collapse completely. That is what is there, and this is not like it's not like a situation where you're trying to compare apples and oranges. These two things are very, very important for the people's livelihood. It's not like economy is just about money and all of that, especially in Nigeria where we don't have a very strong social security system. It's not like maybe the government is going to be giving you some really sensible palliatives. Consider all those palliatives I've been talking about. It doesn't get anywhere. So it's not like maybe you have a robust system that's able to help you when you are not working, that's able to help you when you lose your job. Because we're still going to be getting to a particular story where so many people are being projected to have lost their jobs by the end of this year. So many people will have lost their jobs. Millions of Nigerians will have lost their jobs by the end of this year. So what are you going to be telling all those other people? What are you going to be telling those people when you are saying that it is only about saving lives from COVID-19? People die when they lose jobs. People commit suicide when it's like their lives are being like without purpose. They can't feed their family members. This thing is very, very painful to a man to be the head of a family and you cannot feed your family member. People slip into depression and sometimes some of those people commit suicide. So if you are worried about people committing suicide in Nigeria, you should be concerned about this. And not only that, you're going to have children going wayward. You're going to have family members like splitting up. So many things are going to be happening that are not desirable. So it's not like maybe there will not be lives lost when you have such a situation. So it is not like an either or case. It is actually those two things are things that you have to balance against each other. So again, experts focus on a single thing. They are not going to be considering, you don't expect a medical expert to be considering so much the economic aspects. So which means the governor should be the one deciding 100%. Yes, he's going to get advice from the medical experts, but he should decide. He shouldn't say he's waiting for an advice from the medical expert. So right now, he should be getting some sort of advice from the medical centers, because what that sounds like is that he's waiting for them to tell him when to reopen, because he's trying to prevent himself from criticisms in case anything happens. But that is what should happen. The buck stops at the executive table, that is the person in charge of the state. When it comes to a country, the buck stops at the desk of the president. So that's what it should be. You don't shift the responsibility. That's what they call it, responsibility. Whether or not things go right or they go wrong, it rests with the person in power. So you don't shift that over to the expert. By shifting it over to the expert, you're actually averting or trying to escape from the responsibility or the ability to take the blame if things go wrong. That's exactly what they're trying to do. So they are basically trying to shift it to the heads of those experts. Okay, now the only reason why I'm not opening up is because I'm focusing on what the experts are going to tell me. The only reason why I'm not releasing the religious centers to reopen and the schools and all of that is because I just need to hear it from the medical experts and all of that. And you know that is going to take a long time. So it's almost like you're stalling for time. So that's exactly what is happening. And of course, the experts are not even all that trustworthy when it gets to it, because some people believe that science is something that is 100% accurate always and every time. No. Science is always changing because you keep discovering things. What you thought was true before might not be true by the time you see more evidence tomorrow. So if you stake your life on something that you thought was true today and tomorrow it has already changed, you might get killed today by believing in that thing, or you might end up seriously damaging a particular section of your economy because you trusted that thing 100% without bringing it into context to understand that science can change when you discover more evidence to the contrary of what you are saying right now. So, for instance, you would see that the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, at the beginning of this virus, they claimed that COVID-19 can be spread easily. That is even primarily spread by asymptomatic patients. That is people who don't have any symptoms. Like I mentioned before, that those people, you don't see anything in them. You can't even detect that they have it apart from when you actually test them. So not every single person that gets the virus is somebody that is going to be able to, that is going to be needing ventilators or needing to be admitted and all of that, which is one of the reasons why some people are running away from those isolation centers. People are scared that they are keeping them with people that are sick without knowing that they themselves are sick. So they feel like, I don't feel sick at all. I don't feel weak. So why are you keeping me? I'm not sneezing. I don't have any sort of issue. Why are you keeping me in this isolation center? Those people don't understand that many people, like an overwhelming majority of people who have this virus, don't even have any sort of symptoms. So the reason why they're keeping them out is that they should not go and infect those people who are actually vulnerable, who are actually going to need to be admitted and who might die from the virus. So you're actually keeping those people who are just only going to act as a carrier of the virus, keeping them off the street so that by the time they recover, they can go back. But when they are not, but when they still have the virus, you don't want them to be going around and infecting people who will be more vulnerable. So that's what is there. So now, the WHO claimed at the very beginning that those people can spread the virus a lot, very easily. Like, even those people are the most possible set of people to spread the virus to other people, which is one of the reasons why you can justify the lockdown worldwide. That is actually one of the sort of data that they use to shut down most countries in the world. Because you're so scared of this huge majority of non-symptomatic people who might spread the virus. So it's better for everybody to sit down at home than for you to have somebody that you can't even know that the person has the virus, spreading it all around while at the work. Because the highest thing you're going to do when people want to get to the work is that, okay, you are checking temperature with a laser thermometer and all of that. But what if the person does not have any sort of high temperature? Because the person is asymptomatic. How are you going to know? So which means the person is able to go into the organization and infect everybody without anybody even knowing about it. So that's it. The only time you're going to know that something has already broken out in an area is when somebody is actually symptomatic in the place. That is, somebody actually has the symptoms of the coronavirus in the place. So that's the way it is. So, and somebody that doesn't have it must have spread it all around. So that's what they used to justify the shutdown. But again, the WHO just days ago decided, from studies and everything like that, okay, it's not actually like that, that people who actually have that are not symptomatic, people who don't have any sort of symptoms cannot really spread the virus. So it is very, very rare for people who don't have any symptoms to spread the virus. And then 24 hours after that, they flipped again and they said, okay, actually we're wrong again. It's actually that people who are asymptomatic can still spread the virus and all of that. So you can't really trust this. And this, like, we're not even talking about the understaffed and the undersupplied and the underfunded medical experts in Nigeria. We're talking about people who are funded by millions upon millions of dollars from United States, China, and many other big countries in the world. So these people, they have a lot of resources to do the research, and they are making stupid mistakes like this and keep confusing people. Imagine if you have already taken decision in your country based on what the World Health Organization said just a couple of days ago, and then they suddenly flipped on you. You can't just keep changing things like this. So that's what I'm trying to say, that even the experts are directed by data. Also, if the data suddenly changes, you can't know. So if you just said, okay, it's until when the medical experts actually give you a go-ahead. What if after everything ended up, they discovered that a couple of months earlier they should have allowed everybody to go back, but it was because of one mistake or the other, or because they were trying to be extra careful or whatever like that, and then they have cost a lot more millions of people their jobs. So what are you going to do about that? Who is going to fix the injustice that has been done to those people who lost their jobs. Nobody's going to do anything about that. It's not like maybe the government is going to stand in and protect those people. Nothing is going to happen. Those people have just lost their jobs. They've lost their means of livelihood and everything. They're just basically screwed up. So that's what I'm trying to say. And then you have also, again, in the United States and in the UK, all this protest about George Floyd, the killing of George Floyd by a police officer in Minneapolis. Yes, very, very, very terrible sort of action and all of that. But despite the fact that the United States, like the medical people in the United States, are claiming that black people are dying more of the coronavirus in the United States, first of all, based on the fact that black people tend to be fatter, just obese on average than white people. Also in the UK, so it's not something about racism, it's not something about coming from slavery and all of that, because it happens in the UK and in Europe generally. Black people tend to be a lot fatter than their white counterparts, so that is understandable. But now, if that is really affecting black people more, and black people are dying from this thing more, not because somebody is trying to kill them, but because it affects them just like naturally speaking, why should you allow them to be going outside and protesting? Because now all those people who are complaining about the spread of COVID-19 by people gathering together, they don't open churches, they don't open big places, they don't open the sports centers and all of that. They are allowing thousands upon thousands of people to gather in the streets and protest without any sort of social distancing. A lot of them not wearing masks. Of course, there will be some people wearing masks, but a lot not wearing masks. And you are actually supporting them. The medical institutions in the United States is actually supporting them and even clapping for them and hailing them and all of that. So all these things are confusing. If it's either gathering of people will kill other people by mistake, you kill somebody else's grandmother, even if you are young and you are not going to get killed by the virus, you might spread it to someone else that is vulnerable. But as long as it is a protest, because they are scared of black people, so they can allow that. So that's what I'm trying to say. So it's either this thing is not as strong as it is, or it's actually as strong as it is, and because they are just being hypocritical. So how can you trust these experts? So that's just the problem that is there. And of course, another problem that it is even harder to reopen schools. Now we're talking about churches, no problem, but it is harder to reopen schools because there are some people that have been bringing up proposition that you should open up the schools, especially for the SS3 students, so that they can go for their WAEC and the NECO and all of that. But is it even really possible for you to reopen the schools for WAEC? I don't even think it's possible, because not only Nigeria is involved in WAEC, it's West African. So many countries are actually involved. What are you going to do to Ghana if you start the WAEC in Nigeria? Does it mean that there are going to be different questions for people in Ghana? Does it mean that they are going to be like, how are you going to do it? Like, what are the ways you're going to use to do it? So I believe that's also one of the reasons why they have not been able to reopen the schools, because there has to be a coordination between the Nigerian government and the governments of those other places before they can actually allow the schools to be reopened, especially because of WAEC. So that's just the way it is. Honestly, a lot of things are going on around, and honestly, we just really hope that everything is going to end up all right. This thing can be lifted and everybody can go back to normal. Thank you very much. I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's really going to help the channel to grow. Follow us on Facebook. It's Naija Unsealed, and on Instagram too. So bye.